This is Joy News Prime. Within the next 60 minutes, impose the highest penalty on Aisha Wang if she's found guilty. President Akufo-Addo tells the court as he gives full backing to Attorney General for him to resolve to prosecute the Chinese Galamsey Queen.
I assure you of my full support of the Attorney General in his determination to prosecute Aisha Wang and her collaborators. If they are found guilty, that the courts will apply the full rigor of the new amended act.
And as cocoa beans from Ghana risk being banned following a legislation put forward by the European Commission on cocoa sustainability.
If you look at our production figures, for example, this year, we can say that illegal mining has had an effect on it.
Also coming up, kidney-related disease admissions triple at the Konfanochi Teaching Hospital. A number of these patients hail from mining communities.
Over the years, the people who are presenting with kidney disease are increasing. Our admissions, the people we used to admit some 10 years ago, now the number of people we are admitting now, about 3 times what we used to admit.
And now government is open to considering a bailout for Menzgold customers, despite previously ruling out the idea.
Well, the finance minister is not the president. I mean, the buck stops with the president. Finance minister can make his, of course, looking at the finances, he has an opinion. And of course, there are also legal implications to some of these things.
We have details as members of the group say they are dying and want government or urgent government action to retrieve their locked up funds.
4 years down the lane, we have lost a lot of our people.
Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. We're also live on myjoyonline.com. And cocoa beans from Ghana risk being banned on the European Union and Switzerland markets as the European Commission put forth legislation on cocoa sustainability. Ghana and La Côte d'Ivoire account for over 60% of global cocoa beans production. But illegal and speculative mining activities have raised concerns on the international market, and the EU is considering a complete ban on cocoa beans from non-adherent countries in a bid to cut back on deforestation, which is largely fueling climate change. Latif Idris has more in the following report.
We enjoy this delicious chocolate and reap the economic benefits from the production of cocoa in Ghana, largely because of the sustainable cocoa produced between Ghana and neighboring Côte d'Ivoire. But there is a huge risk beckoning as the European Union and Switzerland put forth what it describes as the sustainable cocoa legislation.
Japan has already taken the lead by drastically reducing importation of Ghana's cocoa beans after the discovery of chemical residue in the beans exported to the Asian country.
When I talk about threats to the environment emanating from Galamsey and the use of banned chemical substances, I'm not a scientist, but at least I know it goes into the groundwater and it comes up through the food chain. And I think Japan has either reduced or banned cocoa, the raw beans, because there have been some residue, chemical residue. It's only a matter of time that other countries and other producers or buyers will say the quality of that product is not good enough.
The European Union is seriously considering a harsher approach. The proposed new EU legislation on deforestation could hurt cocoa exports from Ghana and Côte d'Ivoire. The two West African nations account for over 60% of global cocoa beans production. After years of cautions, the European Union Commission in November 2021 put forth a regulation on deforestation-free supply chains, and cocoa was one of 5 global commodities selected for stricter regulation. If an observatory group is able to confirm widespread deforestation in cocoa-producing countries, paramount among the options being considered by the EU is a complete ban of cocoa products from those countries from entering their market. China has in recent years embarked on an aggressive cocoa production drive.
If we go back to the 2017-2018 escape of Aisha Wang, and the argument that she has been released because we were looking for the Sino-Hydro loan, and that where she should be to be prosecuted, it could affect the loan, then Aisha is not an ordinary Chinese gangster. She's an agent of the state. She's a spy.
It therefore brings into sharp focus allegations by security expert Professor Kwesi Enin that the Chinese government may have deployed spies to collude with some Ghanaians to destroy Ghana's forest in order to trigger the EU ban on the country's cocoa beans.
Now, all those who do this mining, people that we know, or there are people who are aligned to groups and organizations that may not want this country's welfare, but are interested in infiltrating these communities and gangs and panning for high value, small, easily transportable, easily hidden, and easily sold.
If the Chinese, as speculated by Professor Enin, succeed at this economic warfare and espionage, the European Union will be left with no other option than to import cocoa beans from countries that apply the cocoa sustainability legislation.
The widespread speculative mining taking place across Ghana's regions could be the country's undoing.
Well, Public Affairs Manager for Cocoa Board, Fifi Boafo, says what Japan has done is to review the standard of cocoa beans that import from Ghana and not necessarily a cutback or a ban on Ghana's cocoa. He describes the EU Commission's proposed ban on sustainable cocoa as unfortunate. Mr. Boafo says Cocoa Board is highly concerned and has had an intensive engagement with the European Union Commission for a review of the proposed legislation.
If you look at the requirements, there are some challenges, and we've indicated to the European Union in all our conversations and our engagement we've had with them on what we really are doing to ensure that we are able to at least ensure that we sell our cocoa without the challenges that it presents. So, for example, we put in a number of measures that shows that indeed and genuinely we are committed to ensuring that our cocoa is produced from zones that are not considered as the forest. So we are doing that on our part. Of course, if you look at the other concerns that have been expressed, so for example, the extent of which there is forest degradation in the country, that does not lie within our domain to control. Of course, that is handled by other state institutions, and our expectation is that they will double up steps in ensuring that they deal with that. But we also believe that we all have shared objectives that are reflected, for example, in the Paris Agreement, as well as the SDGs, which Ghana subscribes to, which we are working towards. And we were of the view that these arrangements were good enough in dealing with the issues, but the unilateral decision taken by the European Union, of course we do not control them, but we believe it's unfortunate, probably a different means or a different approach could have been adopted in handling the situation.
In the nearest future, if we don't act like you rightly put it, we could see a cutback on the tonnage we produce across the country.
I think the effect has been felt already. The effect has been felt because if you look at our production figures, for example, this year, we can say that illegal mining has had an effect on it. And the danger.
Meanwhile, a mining consultant, Alhaji Haruna Abdullahi, says given that the cocoa sector has proven to be a major contributor to the Ghanaian economy, Cocoa Board and government must address the concerns captured in the EU Commission's legislation to prevent a collapse of the sector.
Action by the EU cannot be taken lightly, given that cocoa has been the backbone of the Ghanaian economy from colonial times till date. This is something that cannot be played down at all upon. We need to take this matter seriously. Cocoa, as we all know, is not just playing a role at the macroeconomic level of the economy, but at the individual macro level. Because the Ghana cocoa sector is essentially driven by the individual smallholder farmers, unlike our counterparts in Cote d'Ivoire, which are more or less commercial plantations. So the income these people, the Ghanaian cocoa farmers get, trickle down to the minutest grass smallholder family level. So as a consequence, we cannot afford not to take this matter seriously and tackle it with all the necessary zeal that is at the disposal of the government. Cocoa incomes. Anytime there's going to be cocoa syndication, there's a reprieve at every level of business in Ghana, where you will know clearly that it will bring about some, at least, stability of our currency, because that earnings is a bulk income that comes into the economy. Unlike even in the mining sector, which also bring a lot of income, but those incomes are often will be repatriated. So we expect Cocoa Board to act seriously, understand the issues that are involved, and we need to engage the EU in what they mean by sustainable cocoa farming. The main focus should just be anything of this nature, given that cocoa is the hallmark of our Ghanaian economy and the individual homes. The government should, I'll reiterate, the government should take this thing seriously.
Let's bring in the Public Affairs Manager for Cocoa Board back. He joins us via Zoom. Fifi Wafo, we are grateful for your time here on Joy News Prime. So really, we would want to talk about how much time really we have in terms of the sustainability policy that the EU Commission has been talking about. But really, you've been talking about how sustainable it is in terms of measures being put in place, being out of your concern. But really, how concerned is Cocoa Board about the effect of Galamsey on the sector?
We are very concerned about what is happening, and indeed, if we say it is not something we directly control, it is not to say that we are not concerned or we are not acting on that. We've had several engagements with the security agencies who we know have some authority to be able to help in dealing with the menace we are faced with. We've also had some engagement with the Minerals Commission, who give authorization for people to undertake small-scale mining, for example, because small-scale miners are also within this space. And then the Minerals Commission also control mining generally in our society. So what we're doing is that we are undertaking some consultations, some discussion to a very high level, and our expectation is that it should lead to some result in dealing with the problem we face. But as an organization, we are very much concerned because this undermines our activity a lot.
But when the EU Commission, for instance, says that they are hoping that Ghana engages in sustainable cocoa farming, what exactly is the expectation?
Well, sustainability generally, they'll have three pillars: the economic, the environmental, and social. Interestingly, the conversation has centered generally on two issues that has to do with the environment and the social aspect. And then when they talk about the environment, it has to do with deforestation, and the social aspect has to do with child labor and issues of the like. We have had some extensive conversation and discussion with the European Union. It got to a time we jokingly had, we said it loosely in the office that, well, we've not had our EU encounters this week. That certainly has to take place because we were always in touch with the European Union. There were several interactions. They would send some documentation, expectations of us and all that, which we have engaged them in trying to find solution to the challenge we face. So I will say that the discussion has gotten to a point. They've indicated to us their expectations of that. Of course, it affects. We've also made them understand. So for example, if you look at the expectations of us now, they expect us to have traceable cocoa. Traceable cocoa is to say that if you are producing cocoa from Ghana, you should be able to trace exactly where the cocoa is coming from. It comes at a cost. And if it is coming at a cost, then the expectation is that you have to do certain things to achieve it. And that extra cost being taken care of either by Cocoa Board or by the farmer, we should be able to find a means of paying for that. The expectation of the farmers are going to increase with these arrangements. And then we are still engaging to see how best we are able to foot that bill going forward.
Well, this particular legislation or sustainability issues that has been raised is raising concerns for a lot of people, especially stakeholders in the sector. Let me find out how much time really we have. You've been talking about your extensive engagement with the EU Commission. How much time do we have as a country to put that sector in order such that we will not have an outright ban?
Well, I don't think the fear now has to do with the ban per se, because the conversation where we've got into and the systems we are putting in place, we are very convinced that yes, it poses some challenge to us, but then it is not beyond us in dealing with the issues. I must admit that it comes at a certain cost and at a certain expectation, but certainly it is something we can deal with. One of the things we are using, or the means we are using to address these concerns, has to do with the cocoa management system, where we have the polygon maps of all cocoa farmers as well as their biodata, and then we are able to trace it to the farms. So issues of entry into the forest does not come up. We are just left with the Western North region. That is the last region we are engaging. And our expectation is that by the end of October, we should have completed that. It gives us a certain comfort where we're able to say that we are able to produce cocoa only from zones that are not considered as forest reserves. And it gives us some assurance. I must add that issues about illegal mining and degradation generally also reduces our strength as a country in terms of how we are seen by the European Union. But if we look at the other measures we are putting in place, it gives us a bit of a relief in terms of showcasing that, yes, as a country, we are not producing cocoa which is not sustainable. Issues of child labor is another issue. Of course, we are dealing with it. There are still some challenges, but to a very large extent, steps have been taken in dealing with the concerns that have been raised.
Okay, well, but these concerns that have been raised, I kept hearing you talk about cost to us as a country. Have we been able to quantify it? Do we know how much exactly we are losing as a result of this?
It is difficult to give you figures now, but let me say that the conversation as we go forward, the expectation increase, and as the expectation increases, the cost components also increase. So yes, we do not have the actual figures now, but then by the time we have finalized this arrangement, we should be able to say that, okay, if we are to go through all these arrangements or these expectations in fulfilling them, this is how much it will cost us in producing a ton, for example. And by that effect, we'll have a conversation to say that then this is how much you're expected to pay extra, so we'll be able to produce the cocoa sustainably.
Okay, and already we're hearing that Japan has reduced importation of our raw cocoa beans from Ghana because some chemical residue was found in it. How true is that?
Well, the 2,4-D was a chemical that some years back it was detected. But it will interest you to know that we have a laboratory in Tema, and this laboratory, they actually test all the cocoa going to Japan. The conversation and it has gone on. We know their expectations, and we are working towards that. It is not exactly the case that Japan have reduced the cocoa they purchased from Ghana. That of last year, the figure reduced from 39,000 tons to about 28,000. It has increased the cocoa season, which came to an end just a few weeks, about a week ago. So it is not a case that they do not trust cocoa coming from Ghana, but of course, the quantities needed for the country varies at a point. There was an issue about 2,4-D that has been addressed. So now cocoa leaving Ghana to Japan go through that testing protocols, and we are able to certify that it is devoid of any chemical residue that is unwanted in that country.
Okay, well, but these concerns, though, are they really legitimate in terms of the concerns raised by the EU, the Switzerland markets, amongst others? Is it the case of just sabotage, for instance?
It is difficult to call it sabotage, but we believe that there could have been a different way of addressing the concerns raised, because Ghana is a signatory to the Paris Agreement. We are committed to dealing with the issues of SDGs. So clearly, multi-stakeholder engagement, we've exhibited that our commitment is to ensuring that we produce cocoa sustainably. But in a situation whereby you have this unilateral enactment of a law that seeks to ban a country for failure to achieve this set target, I think it's a bit harsh, and then we could have used a different means of arriving at these set target. But let me also say that as a country, we are also concerned because apart from the expectations of us that we reduce issues of illegal mining or mining generally, it has some effect on us.
Okay.
One of the challenges we face presently has to do with being able to predict our weather correctly, because climate change is having an issue on us. It adds to our cost and it affects our productivity.
Okay. But the assurance, finally, I'm sorry, but the assurance you can give to the stakeholders, the cocoa sector, farmers, those listening to you right now, is that you're working tirelessly to avert a possible ban on cocoa from Ghana.
Well, Emefa, I will say that we do not stand the risk of having cocoa from Ghana banned because we've understood the expectations of us. We are working towards ensuring that we do not get to that stage. It's a challenge, but it's a challenge we'll be able to deal with.
We're grateful. That's Fifi Boafo, in charge of public affairs at the Ghana Cocoa Board, joining us via Zoom. I'll stay on illegal mining and its activities, and we're told that Komfo Teaching Hospital, for instance, they've recorded 4 times of kidney diseases now than a decade ago, attributable to Galamsey. Hospital admissions with kidney diseases have also tripled in the last 10 years. Outpatient cases with kidney-related diseases have also quadrupled, with a number of these patients hailing from mining communities. Officials at the health facility also attribute the growing cost of the use of mercury in illegal mining activities happening in some of Ghana's farmlands and forest covers. Lava Firm's Emmanuel Bright Kweku has the rest of the story.
Just at the Komfo Teaching Hospital, Dr. Elliot Krantintano revealed the use of the chemical in extracting gold has a direct effect on the kidney, heart and brain. He indicated people domiciled in illegal mining areas are exposed to the toxic metal through inhalation and consumption of water sources in the communities.
We know that over the years, the people who are presenting with kidney disease are increasing. In fact, data we collected from Komfo, just looking at over the past 10 years, what numbers of kidney disease we are seeing, we actually realize that the numbers are increasing in numbers, increasing. Now, the point is that when we look at our admissions, the people we used to admit some 10 years ago, now the number of people we are admitting now, about 3 times what we used to admit. When we talk about people who we see with kidney disease on outpatient basis, it's probably now about 4 times what we used to see about 10 years ago. And the unfortunate thing is that, because these things are subtle and the exposures of some of these risk factors, I'll put them together, are so subtle, it takes a long time for people to even notice that, oh, maybe there's something wrong with them. And unfortunately, in most situations, by the time people come with kidney disease in Komfo, for instance, it is so late.
The kidney experts disclose the average age of persons in Ghana living with kidney diseases has reduced from its normal 60 years to a rather disturbing age of 40 years. Available research indicates mercury cannot be removed from water through boiling, as seen in most houses who rely on water sources in mining areas. As a result, people who consume water contaminated with mercury deposits could have their nervous system affected, leading to neurological symptoms such as anxiety, irritability, numbness, memory problems, depression and physical tremors. Dr. Krantintano is therefore advocating an all-inclusive effort to eradicate the devastating impact of illegal mining activities as it trickles down to residents in urban centers.
We need to ensure that we look at this, high up in terms of ensuring that it's not just lip service. We need to do something in this country about this Galamsey. We need to do something about this Galamsey. And we need to put pressure on government to do something about it and just not the lip service. But the point is that most of the people to put the pressure are the same beneficiaries of this Galamsey. And
Interesting timing of this revelation, because it's also been revealed that some farmers in the Atiwa West District in the eastern region now resort to the use of sachet water to mix agrochemicals to spray their crops. According to the co-principal investigator of the University of York UG Galamsey research team, Professor Gladys Nyako, the fight against illegal mining will prove futile if the locals in these areas where the menace is prevalent are not properly engaged.
Who are the actors involved in the fight? Who is fighting who? Okay, so the chiefs may not be responsible, they may not have any hand, but the people themselves, the individual landowners. So from the projects we run, when you speak to people on the ground, people's cocoa farms are left hanging because Galamseyers have dug around all the farm and they can't even have access to the farm. And they tell you, when the Galamseyers come and tell you, sell your land to us to mine, and you refuse. When you sleep and wake up, they have dug around your farm. And then you have no option than to sell the farm to them very cheaply. Okay, the excavators, these are not items that you can smuggle on the quiet into the forest. People will see, and the people in the town, there are hunters in the villages, there are farmers, right? There are palm wine tappers. They see. When they see, what do they do? If we really want to win the fight, so-called fight, engage the people and let the engagement be genuine. Don't let us do something to represent something, because the people are not fools. Forgive my words, for lack of a better word. So when they see that you are only using them as a means to an end, then they refuse to play along, and they also do what you are doing, and they can do it better. I have visited a number of the places where Galamsey occurs. It is very sad. It is very sad. Farmers have to buy pure water to go and mix chemicals, weedicides and things to spray their farms.
Really?
They have to buy, yes.
Where is this?
Atiwa West.
Let's get more on this development, and let's bring in my colleague Erastus Asaredonko. He has produced a documentary on the destruction of our environment by illegal small-scale mining. Erastus, you have done extensive work on this to a point that it may be tiring. But from your investigations on the grounds, what's your experience of people suffering from mining-related diseases to start with?
Well, so if you remember the issue we reported from Konongo, that's about 4 years ago. Miners were dying there in droves, and from a disease that the Agogo hospital tagged. I've forgotten the tag name, but they were having lung problems, and it was coming out as a result of the grinding of stones without covering their mouths. And then it was also linked to the metals within the powdery dust that they produced from the grinding of these stones, including mercury, lead, and other substances. So at a point in time, the lungs harden up and they can no longer breathe, they can't walk even a distance, and then they are dying. The other forms that we've seen includes what the professor was talking about, mercury, the use of mercury. And I've seen that a lot in so many areas where they use mercury. The miners are naive towards the effects of mercury, and so they use their bare hands in handling that substance. And some of them even do not wash their hands before eating. So you find quite a lot of kidney-related diseases in many of the communities that we visited. So quite a number of diseases associated with mining.
Well, and we're just hearing also about some farmers having to use sachet water to mix their chemicals in order to spray their crops. You've come across such development?
Plenty, Emefa, across Ghana. In fact, when we went to Samreboy, the farmers there called a meeting. We sat in there. That was their major concern, because you could see them in the footages that will be provided, some of them carrying water to the farm to water a cocoa seedling. In fact, when they grow crops, you cannot water the crops with the streams or the rivers. And imagine a river like Tano, and you cannot even fetch water from the Tano to water your crops because of the heavy metal contamination. It will kill the crops. That is how bad it is. And so when we went to Enyinamso, for example, there was a farmer who came to our office with that complaint. In fact, he had grown cocoa seedlings. He could not even use the stream nearby to water the crop. He had to fetch water from the house, carry it for miles to the farm to water the crops. And so it's commonplace in many of the illegal mining affected areas that we visited.
Erastus, many thanks for your company this evening. That's my colleague Erastus Asari Donko there. He's done extensive work on illegal mining. And finally, on this particular worrying situation, we've been hearing from President Akufo-Addo, who is asking that the highest penalty should be imposed on Aisha Wang if she's found guilty. That's a charge by President Akufo-Addo to the court as he gives full backing to the Attorney General for his resolve to prosecute the Chinese Galamsey Queen. We know that the Attorney General had called for dockets on that case previously, and she was deported in 2018, was rearrested last week in the Ashanti region. She's been charged with engaging in the sale and purchase of minerals without valid license and engaging in mining without license. So in a post on Twitter last week, the AG's department indicated that Aisha Wang will be prosecuted for both her old and new offences. This followed that heavy public criticism of government handling of the matter and calls for a full-scale probe of the Galamsey Queen's activities. Well, President Akufo-Addo has been speaking about it at the ongoing Bar Conference in Hull.
Entrench media freedom, deepened attachment to the rule of law, probity and accountability, respect for individual liberties, human rights, the principles of democratic accountability and social justice, and created an environment in which government and regulatory policies attempt to enhance rather than inhibit or frustrate trade, commerce, and investments. May I, learned colleagues, assure you of my full support of the Attorney General in his determination to prosecute Aisha Wang and her collaborators, who apparently insist on flouting our laws against galamsey and illegal mining. I expect, if they are found guilty, that the courts will apply the full rigor of the new amended Act 995, which has increased substantially the punishment for breaches of the law.
It's time for a quick breather here on Joy News Prime Live on myjoyonline.com, also on the Joy News channel. Still to come, government is now open to considering a bailout for Menzgold customers, despite previously ruling out the idea.
Finance Minister is not the president. I mean, the buck stops with the president. Finance Minister can make his, of course, looking at the finances, he has an opinion. And of course, there are also legal implications to some of these things.
Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. The District Chief Executive of the Elembele District Assembly, Kwesi Bonzo, says he is not perturbed by what is happening to him in his fight against illegal small-scale mining. The embattled DCE says that will rather urge him on to intensify his fight against the menace, because if nothing is done about it, the future generation will find themselves in a huge mess. He's been speaking exclusively to Joy News. He explained that he will be the last person to sabotage the president in the fight against galamsey.
How do you feel about this arrest?
Sad. Sad because it shouldn't have happened the way it happened. It was so avoidable. Why do I say so? I was performing my legitimate duties as a chairman of Olembe, who was himself under investigation for missing excavators. So once I got wind of the excavators moving out of my district, instinctively, I knew I needed to take reasonable steps to have evidence. First, to confirm whether it's indeed one of the missing excavators which was being transported. And how could I have done that? I could only do that by taking pictures and videos. And this was a moving vehicle. So I had to go take videos and pictures. That's all I did. I never obstructed the police in any way, as was claimed in the police statement. It was only a video that I took. The first point of the video was just after Ankobra, where I took the video myself in my car, and then I stopped my car, went to the other side to get the details of the excavator. That's all my interest. The whole action lasted for just 1 minute, 6 seconds. So at that point that the police decided that they should arrest me. So I had to run into my car to move to the nearest town.
Okay.
Because this was in the middle of nowhere. I didn't know what was going to happen to me. They were very armed. There was no confrontation. I mean, why would I even go and confront armed policemen? So there was no confrontation. Even at the point of my arrest, I didn't resist. Except that it was so dramatic, they put handcuffs. And I was saying, you don't need to handcuff me to arrest me. For heaven's sake, I am a DC who is performing his legitimate duties. So if, for whatever it is, the police feel obstructed, for whatever it is, and you want to arrest me, they could have easily even invited me. I would have made in any case, I was already under police self-cognizance bail.
And government was categorical they were not going to use taxpayers' funds to bail out customers of defunct Menzgold. Millions of cedis belonging to hundreds of Ghanaians are locked up in investments they made with a firm belonging to Nana Apia Mensah, popularly known as NAM1. Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta said the customers were motivated by greed and the state was not in the position to pay their locked-up investment. Now, it appears government is softening the stance following a protest in Accra today. Kwekwa Sante has more in the following report.
For 4 years, customers of Menzgold have had to hold such protest, although it has yielded no results. Their cries seem to have fallen on deaf ears and they've been left to their own fate, they claim. These Ghanaians have been telling a harrowing story of how their life worsened every other passing day.
Nanado and a buyer was see a branch, a money a fraud. I didn't sabeto so when you know, and you did a fraud on ice can walk, Kasa Nanado, a she, Emma Yenina, ye sika, and son of Mobet to you many more.
My money is 200,000. 200,000. The old is 2 billion. It's a man's good now. You see? So now, I'm even now.
Oh, my wood dosun, yally dosun, worry a good dosun, panicho. One thing and in share a cry, yes, you can man phone in a man who, yes, run a pound share, panicho, and no pay, and I'm pessimecan at Reno.
In fact, I'm not well. I'm not well. So this is what is happening. So Nanado, if he's claiming that he's a Christian, if he's claiming that he's a real president there, then he should give us our money.
4 years down the lane, we have lost a lot of our people, not less than 185. Many are ill. There are many orphans. Children's future is in jeopardy. We don't know what is happening. So today, the message to the president is simple, that it is high time the president, he has so much powers. One of them is that he is able to show compassion.
Director of Operations at the Presidency, Lord Comey, who received a petition on behalf of government, assured them President Akufo-Addo is still very interested in this case. He is not ruling out a direct payment intervention from government.
We realize that we have been swindled, and that's the fact. I mean, on records, I've just mentioned everybody. And when I say everybody, I'm sure that every sector of our Ghanaian society, the police, military, prisons. I mean, I can't think of any sector within our Ghanaian society, one way or the other, not affected by this Menzgold thing.
The finance minister is on record to have said that government cannot make these payments that the customers demand.
Well, the finance minister is not the president. I mean, the buck stops with the president. Finance minister can make his, of course, looking at the finances, he has an opinion. And of course, there are also legal implications to some of these things. I'm sure that when the finance minister had to come out to bail out these banks. These banks are out of some constitutionally established legal arrangements. But we have a precedent, and I'm sure that people petition him all the time. We receive lots and lots of petitions. And of course, he has to show respect to his citizens. If aggrieved customers of Menzgold would want to meet him, I'm sure he should make himself available. And this is why I'm here. I will send this thing to him, whatever the issues are. As president, I'm sure, as I said, it's difficult for me to speak for him on this particular matter. But I think that as his sons and daughters, he would find a way.
A number of aggrieved Menzgold customers are protesting right here in Accra. They are saying that government has been negligent in terms of demanding what is due them. They are saying that the President Akufo-Addo, must personally intervene to get their money for them. They've been raising concerns about government's lack of action, government taking action against Nana Appiah-Mensah, number one, who is said to be the CEO of the company.
More than 150 of their colleagues have died, they say. Chances are the next time they meet, some more would have passed on. They want their cries to be heeded too and their locked up funds retrieved. For Joy News, Kweku Asante, Accra.
I'll take a quick break. When we return, we have showbiz.